Well, the next instalment of our Frenzee live matches. We've had some good results so far, but the race is on for the first win of the series. So today, beautiful day, and I've brought you out to Winfield Lakes in Spaldington. Now, a little bit of a change today. The match is actually a rover match, so it's spread across two lakes. First of all, we've got Low Lake. Now, Low Lake's smaller carp, sort of £1.5 to £3 mostly, lots and lots of bites. High Lake, a little bit different, much bigger carp, old wise fish, so obviously you don't need to catch quite as many, not as many bites, but they're much bigger. So I've got a few decisions to make now. Do I want to go on the big lake, fishing for big fish, or do I want to go on Low Lake, fish for smaller fish with more bites? It's a hard choice to make. Not only have I got to pick the right lake, I've got to pick the right peg. So I'm going to go and get myself off, have a walk around the lakes and try and figure out exactly where I want to be. So the first place I've come to have a look at is High Lake. Like I said, bigger fish in here. They're not all big. There's a real mix of fish from small stocky carp, maybe 10 ounce to a pound size, up to great big double figure fish. But to do any good on this lake, you're really going to be targeting them big old fish. So I've had a look at pegs and there's a few I fancy. First of all, peg 1. It's in a bit of a corner along a spit, and from what I know of the lake, there's some small fish to catch along this spit. There's some barbel F1s and fish like that, as well as them big old carp later on. So really fancy that peg, thinking the wind's off your back, nice and comfortable to fish. I've got this spit to fish against where I'm going to get some bites through the day, and then hopefully you'd be able to finish off the match with some big carp. The next couple of pegs I've chosen are all about targeting them big fish all match, and they're both right up the other end of the lake in the wind. The first one that I've looked at is peg 17. It's actually a peg I've managed to win off before, so a peg that I do know. The wind's blown up there, and the weather at the minute, we've had some frosts earlier in the week, but now we're starting to come out of winter. Yesterday's 15 degrees, today's forecast 14 or 15. We've got a southerly wind, nice and warm, and I really think that that wind will probably push some of them big fish up that end of the lake. So peg 17 and peg 10, which is straight opposite there, it means I'm nice and comfortable to fish. The wind's a bit side on, but I'm expecting to catch some fish down the edge, so that wind's going to blow them up there, and hopefully I can target them big fish all match. So if I come on this lake, I'm thinking they're probably my 3 choices of pegs, and after that I'll maybe go and look at some pegs on the Low Lake where there's going to be a lot more bites to be had. Okay, so on to Low Lake now. Like I said, the fish are smaller in here, lots more bites, and really my main consideration on here is that I want to be able to fish properly. The fish are a bit more spread out, so I want to be able to target them exactly how I want. My main choice of pegs are basically going to be along this bank where I'm stood. The wind will be straight off my back, I can fish nice and comfortable, I can present my rig, and hopefully allow me to catch loads of these littler fish. The only other pegs I'm thinking of on here are maybe pegs 11 and pegs 14, which are over the other side in a bit of a corner, but they're a little bit narrower. I can reach the island, or nearly reach the island there with a pole, and that'll allow me to target the fish towards the island, but like I've just mentioned, I can fish for them a little bit better than if I had to fish a feeder or a waggler. So I've got the option of doing that, but first of all I'm probably going to look at picking these pegs nice and comfortable, wind off my back, and I can fish exactly how I want to target larger numbers of fish.
I'll just say it again, because we had no feeder with the full company feeder as well.
What choices?
High, low, mate.
One on high.
One on high. Well done.
I ended up drawing pick number 7 on the rover. Bit of a shock I didn't get number 1 or number 2, but there you go, you've got to deal with what you get. So I've actually got a bit lucky still. A couple of the people who drew before me have gone up the top end of High Lake where I'm sat, where I mentioned them big fish might follow the wind, and the others went on Low Lake, so I was left with peg 1 on High, which I actually mentioned when we done a bit of a talk, that's one of the pegs I wanted to go on. You can see I've got this long spit down to my right here, so that's the first area I'm going to look to target. Along there generally is some small stocky carp, some F1s, some barbel, and hopefully an odd better carp. I'm hoping that line will keep me ticking along for a long time. The match is actually 6 hours long today, so if I can get maybe the first 4.5 hours of trying to catch anything I can, put fish in the net and slowly build a weight, then I can hopefully target some big carp down to a lovely looking platform to my left late on in the match, and that'll boost my weight up. The other line I'm going to look to fish is straight out in front of me in the open water. Now where I'm going to feed micros and corn up this end bank for them small fish, they've just shouted time there. Straight out in front, I'm probably going to just feed some hard 4mm pellets and a few grains of corn, and that'll hopefully allow me to target some bigger fish. If things don't work out quite how I'm hoping, there's a few other things I can try during the match, but I'll talk to you about them as they come up. So first of all, I just want to go put a little bit of bait in up that bank. Now it's still cold, I'm not going to feed loads of bait, just a little pinch of micros there. I'm going to put them in my pot, and just a couple of grains of corn. Again, just put them in there, and I'm just going to go tap them along the bank. First place I'm planning on fishing. So that's the first place I want to put some bait, try and draw a fish there, and then I can look at putting some bait in on another line that I'm going to fish. So I'll just ship that out there, nice and steady, don't want to spill anything. And this is the most important part of a match for me, just setting off right, try and get yourself a good start, try and be nice and accurate. I've just got my spot there, and I'll just rattle them in. I'm going to put them in actually from a bit of a height. You've seen some of it fall out there. A bit of noise, and it just gives the carp a reason to come in, lets them hear the bait coming. And then I just want to go and put some bait on that line in the open water that I mentioned, where hopefully I might catch an odd big fish. So I'm going to feed that one a little bit different to start with, and I'm going to feed some hard 4mm pellets. Not many, I don't know what's there, probably 15, maybe 20 at a push. And just sort of 5, 6, 7 pieces of corn. And hopefully them baits will stay on the bottom until a bigger carp or maybe a big skimmer or something like that's coming into my peg. And I'll just keep that topped up until I feel like I need to fish it. So again, I'll just take my time, there's no rush in this first bit of the match. I just want to get my bait in and get myself fishing, and hopefully I'll get off to a nice start. I'm just going to feed them 14 metres straight in front of me, and again, just going to shake them out from a bit of a height, just make a little bit of noise and let them fish know that they're there. And then it's time to start fishing. Now one thing you'll notice is I didn't feed my margin line. Now I'm not planning on fishing it like you would in summer and dumping a load of bait late on. I don't see the point in feeding it quite yet. Like I said, 6 hour match. I've got a long time to target that edge, so I'll probably start feeding it maybe 2.5, 3 hours in, and I'll just start introducing some bait, looking to fish it last hour and a half. So, I'm going to start off with a piece of corn, nice and bright. Carp absolutely love it. I can catch F1s on it, I'll catch skimmers, I'll catch barbel, give myself a chance of everything. The other bait I might fish there is expanders, but to start with, I'm going to start on corn. And again, I'll just put a little pinch of bait in there. But what I won't do is feed that straight away. Obviously, I've just fed some bait. So I'm just going to go and put my rig in and just see if I can get a bite. I'll maybe give it 3-4 minutes, and then I'll tap that bait in again. Again, just make a little bit of noise, try and make something happen in my peg. Got a nice light strung out rig, water's still cold, and I want to just try and give them fish that are there a chance to see my hook bait. A first thought I did have, oh, rig's just sat a bit on something there. First thought I did have was to dob some corn along that bank to start with, thinking there might be an odd fish just sat there. But I decided against that eventually, thinking to myself, last few days have been really, really mild. Yesterday was sort of 15 degrees, today's forecast 14, 15 degrees. I've had 7, 8 degrees overnight, and I'm hoping I've made the right decision by not doing that at the start, because I'm thinking there might be some fish actually feeding. And by getting some bait in quickly, I'm drawing them to me. I'm just going to keep lifting and dropping that bait, make it as attractive as I can. Like I said, a lot of the fish that I'm going to catch along there are going to be fish like small stocky carp and F1s, maybe some chub, barbel, small active fish that will hopefully respond to a little bit of movement, a little bit of bait being tapped in, and hopefully I'll get some bites fairly soon. Ideally, I'll just catch a fish in sort of the first 5 minutes. There's never any rush in this early stage of the match to start making decisions. You're just really keeping an eye on the lake a little bit, see what's happening. When I look about, as people started off in a short pole, I can see Andy, the fishery owner, over this other side of this spit. He started off sort of top kitting 2, top kitting 3. The guy to my left started off on a, I'm not sure if he started on a bomb or a feeder, I didn't see him cast it in. He's chucked that over towards the island. There's people fishing long poles, so by keeping an eye on them all, it'll give me a really nice idea of exactly what's happening on the lake. And the one beauty of my peg, which really suits me to be honest, I'm not one for setting loads of gear up, and every single place I've plumbed up in my peg is the same depth to within about 5 millimeters. So whatever anyone else is catching on, it's easy for me to just change. I can drop this rig in anywhere I want in my peg, and it suits everywhere, to be honest. Well, no signs yet. I'm confident I'm fishing in the right part of my peg. I know from what I've seen in the past, I've not been here loads of times. I've been here maybe 5 or 6 times over the last couple of years. But this peg definitely holds some small fish along that bank. And speaking to Andy, the fishery owner, he drew it a couple of weeks ago. And he said he caught some small fish fishing a little feeder a bit further along the bank than what I'm fishing. So I have got that option, but to start with, really want to try and catch them on the pole. If I'm going to catch the amount of them little fish that I want to be catching, really want to be catching them on a pole, to be honest. Just a little bit more efficient, can fish a little bit nicer, and keep my bait nice and accurate, and most importantly, like I mentioned when I first fed, I can make a little bit of noise with that bait. So I've gone in now over that initial little bit of bait I've fed. Nothing's happened, no signs yet. So I'm now starting to think about tapping that bait in that I'd left in my pot. Other options I've got, I can maybe change to a sprinkle style pot, keep tapping a few micros in, try and draw fish into my peg that way. But I'm hoping once I get one bite, bites should come fairly regular. Quite often this early time of the year, that's the hardest bit, getting your first bite. Once you get a bite, you're off on your way. One fish tends to draw more in because the fish want to feed, so the activity of a fish coming into your peg and feeding will draw other fish in. So at the minute I'm just going to be nice and patient and wait for a bite. Was hopeful, I suppose like you was at the start of the match, I was hoping I'd go in, get the perfect start and it'd go straight under. That hasn't happened yet. I'm not seeing anyone catch a fish yet, to be honest. So just keep going at the minute and wait for a few to turn up. I'm just going to tap a little bit of bait over that float now. Just see them pellets in the water and then a couple of bits of corn, a little bit of noise, and see if that draws some response. But at the minute, like I said, we're just going to sit there. Oh, that was a little sign, and just a small fish. But like I said, we're off the start, and that just shows I tapped that little bit of bait in, and I got a response straight away, and it just makes me think that first bit of bait I fed had some fish come in and maybe just eating it, and that's why I'd gone in and not got a bite quickly. What I mentioned with the micros and corn, you can catch nearly anything on them, and that, what have we got? Looks like a little F1. So only a small fish. You see there, lovely little F1, but at least we're off to a start. Just place him in the net. So same again now. I'll go out. I'm going to pick my piece of corn carefully. So if you look there, real nice small piece of corn, suited to the size of fish I'm likely to catch. If the size of fish increases, or I want to try and target a bigger fish, then I can change to a bigger piece, or maybe double corn. But again, just a little pinch of micros, a couple of pieces of corn. And I'll go out and see what happens this time. I'm already thinking, if I'm going to be catching maybe some little F1s, maybe an expander pellet will be better on the hook. So I'll try this corn again, and maybe next go in, I might try an expander. But even though they're only small fish, what you've always got to remember is, like I was speaking about, I'm hoping to catch some big carp down the edge. So I'm thinking we're fishing to catch maybe 70 pound today. I could catch 35, 40 pound late on. So it's a case at the minute of just trying to catch anything I can. Just keep putting fish in the net and hope an odd bigger one is in amongst them. I'm going to go get on with it for a little bit. I'll come back to you after maybe an hour and a half, and let you know how things are going. I'm confident now that I've had a bite that I should get a few bites on this line. I'll keep that other line in open water topped up, see what I can catch on that. And obviously it's nice and easy to switch between the two with them being exactly the same depth. But for now, I'm going to go get on with my fishing, and I'll catch up with you soon. We're about an hour and 3/4 into the match now, and it's fishing really, really hard. I've actually only seen one proper carp caught on the whole lake from one of the pegs down the other end, and I'm not really getting as many bites as I expected to get. I've got, I think, maybe 6, 7 or 8 little F1s, a small stocky carp, that's maybe 12 ounces, 5 or 6 skimmers for maybe, don't know, 11 pound probably. So I'm getting enough bites to just keep me going as long as I get a run of big fish down the edge late on. And I think, to be honest, if anyone's going to do any good on this lake, they're going to have to catch some fish down the edge, because it's fishing really, really hard. Apparently the other lake's not fishing all that great. They say about 20 pounds best on there. So we're not out of it. Definitely keep going, just keep trying to catch something for now. starting to think now that I'm going to have to make a little change, because I've caught pretty much all of my fish where I'm fishing now. Where I've fed hard pellets and corn in the open water, I never had a bite. I've just not long ago changed that and started feeding some micros there, and I've caught, I think, a skimmer and a roach there. Seems like every time I come off this line where I'm fishing at the minute, I can go in and I get a bite instantly as soon as my rig goes in, but then I'm having to wait again for my next one. So just before I get a rod out and maybe have a chuck a little bit further up the bank, sort of towards this tree that's further along where there's a little bit more cover, I've just made a little change and potted in a little bit of ground bait, just sort of my little pot on the end of my pole, a little bit of crushed expander in it, and just see if that draws a little bit of a better response and gets some more fish in my peg. But if not, I'm definitely going to look at getting a rod out and chucking a little feeder along that bank, whether that's a small method feeder, maybe a little pellet feeder. There has been some fish topping. They're not massive fish, they look like maybe the sort of the small stocky sized carp that are in here, and they've been topping. Sort of where this tree is about as far along that bank as I'm allowed to cast really, and they're topping just the other side of that. But I feel like if I ever cast there, at least I'm casting into an area closer to where them fish are topping, because at the minute it's really, really hard work, and it's definitely getting worse. I could sort of sit earlier and wait for a bite, and eventually I would get one. Now I'm finding I've got to come off it, leave it, go back in, catch one, come off it, and I'm not getting any bites on my other line. So that's really slowing things down, and obviously just not getting as many bites as I would hope. I was hoping I might just hook a carp or two in amongst these smaller fish along this bank, but there's not been a sign of one yet. And there hasn't been any move really. To be honest, there's not been any move anywhere on the lake that I've seen, other than there's just been a couple topped the other side of this spit, which is obviously where I can't get to. It's in the other half of the lake. And I've seen one top sort of halfway along the banking as well, but not any amount anywhere really, and certainly none in this area. As I say, that one's just crashed out straight in front of me, but sort of halfway along the lake. So just need them to start moving about a little bit, having a feed. Hopefully that edge will come good. I'm still fairly confident. It looks lovely. It's deep in front of the platform. The platform really hangs over the water. Lots and lots of room to my left. So it's perfect for them, and hopefully, oh, there's a bite, and just a small fish again, but at least it's a bite, something in the net. But yeah, hopefully when I go down that edge, I might catch a few carp, and you could easily sort of catch 5 for £40, and that's when it becomes crucial to have caught something before. That's a tiny F1. That must be about 3 or 4 ounces, but something in the net. And obviously, like I just said, when you come into that last little bit of the match, and if you suddenly catch 5 for £40, then every ounce and every pound you've caught before that can become crucial, because that £40 can obviously take you from coming nowhere to potentially winning or framing in the match. So I'm just going to try again, feed just a few micros and a little bit of corn there, and I'm just going to put a little bit of that crushed expander in again and just see if anything happens. But what I'm going to just try and do this time, before I feed that bit, I'm just going to put my rig in over the top of where I've caught that one, see if I just get another bite without feeding straight away. There's obviously not loads of fish there, and I don't want to risk just keeping on feeding for the sake of it. I'm going to have another 10 minutes or so on this, and if I don't get one, my next approach is definitely going to be to get a rod out and just have a chuck a bit further along the bank where there's a little bit more cover. And I'm thinking, even there, I'm still not going to be fishing just to catch big fish. I'm fishing to catch a bit of everything. So I'll maybe fish a little pellet feeder with sort of hair-rigged corn, hair-rigged expander, something like that. Oh, and then straight away another bite without feeding. So that's definitely interesting. I think that's just a skimmer, but yeah, I went straight back in over the top of that feed without feeding, and I've got a bite straight away. So that's definitely something to bear in mind as well. Maybe I'm just feeding a little bit too regular. That's a very small fish, to be honest, again, but like I said, they all count. It's a little F1 again. But maybe, you normally get the curse of the camera, maybe I'm getting a bit of luck from the camera. I'm going to get some bites while I'm talking, so I probably shouldn't go yet. I'll probably keep chatting for a bit longer, and maybe I'll keep being lucky and get another bite or two. So that's a nice sign. But the one thing that I really could do with is hooking a carp, even just one. If you catch one, it gives you a lot more confidence that you're going to catch some later down that edge. And obviously, like I said, it does look perfect for them. And I know over the last few weeks they have been catching down the edge, so I'm hopeful I'll catch a few there to boost my weight at the end. I'll just try that again. I'll just give it maybe 30 seconds or so without feeding anything, just see if I can get another quick bite like that. And if not, then I'll tap my bait in and just see how long it takes me to get a bite. But like I said, if I don't get some type of sudden improvement in the next 10 minutes or so, I'm definitely going to look at getting a rod out and just having a chuck up further along that bank. I think I've got to do it at some point, because I'll be left wondering if it would have worked, and this line isn't strong enough to warrant not at least trying it. So I didn't get a bite straight away again this time, so I'm just going to tap that little bit of bait in. So there's another carp just top. That looked like a decent fish, sort of probably 7 or 8 metres past the tree where I can cast to. But like I said, if I set that rod up, at least I'm putting myself closer to the area where I've seen a few fish moving, because this line now does seem to be dying and there seems to be less and less fish there. I'll obviously keep feeding a little bit of bait on it, in case I want to come back on it. I would think I'm not going to suddenly chuck a feeder out and catch one every chuck, but it might just give me something where I can fish 2 lines along this bank. Then I can fish my long pole where I am now, and then I'll also have the option of fishing that feeder. I can maybe switch between the two and get a bit more consistency towards what I'm catching. But for now, I'll leave it there. Like I said, I had 11 pounds. I've probably got 11.5 pounds maybe now. So if I can just keep getting the odd bite, maybe catch an odd bigger fish, and then finish off with a good run down the edge, you never know what will quite happen. But I'll come back to you again, maybe in another hour or so, just a bit more than an hour, and I'll let you know how it's going. Fingers crossed, by then I've had some carp. Right, so we're now 3 hours into the match, and since the last update, it's been a bit strange, to be honest. I had a bit of a bad spell straight after it, where I never seemed to catch anything for ages. My line up the bank went dead. I had a little chuck on a feeder and never had a bite, which really surprised me. And where I'd changed my line in the open water to micros and corn instead of the hard pellets and corn, I'd not caught anything. It was useless, to be honest. And sort of 40 minutes ago, maybe 45 minutes ago, an odd carp started moving about, not in my peg, but just dotted around the lake. Most of them, to be honest, were probably halfway along this spit. And I just decided to, because that open water line had been pretty rubbish, I changed it back to hard pellets and corn, just sort of trying to target carp on it. And I've managed to catch 2 on it. One maybe, probably 2 for £8, I would say. And it's noticeable that there is more carp moving about. I've seen Andy over in this half of the lake catch one down the edge. I've seen somebody else up that way catch one short. So maybe, well, obviously we're getting into the second half of the match now, and hopefully a few might start having a chew. I've managed a couple more little F1s up this bank, and I've just had a carp there, but only a little stocky, about £1.5. So it's made things a bit more interesting. I'm sort of slightly starting to change my approach now, trying to be a little bit more positive, giving myself a better chance of catching them carp. I've just fed some bait in the edge to my left about half an hour ago. I'll top that up maybe another 2 or 3 times before I look at trying that, maybe with an hour and a half to go, or maybe even 2 hours, depends how things go. But I do fancy catching some more carp on that open water line now for definite. I caught them 2 probably in the space of, I don't know, 20 minutes. Just fed a little bit more bait with a pot there, probably 15, 20 pieces of corn, and maybe 20 or 30 pellets, 4mm pellets. As I'm talking, there's another carp just topped, sort of, to be honest, in that area where I've seen a few top, just a bit past that tree, just past the limit of where I can fish. I've just seen one move again. And now I'm starting to think to myself, obviously I've refed that line, I think I might catch another carp or 2 there when I go back to it. But those small fish, the skimmers, the F1s, them type of fish, are very few and far between now along this bank. I'm starting to think to myself now, do I now become a little bit more positive on that line as well? Oh, just had a little dip there, it's just a small fish, but do I now start being a little bit more positive on that line and maybe just see if I can give myself the chance of maybe picking a carp up there as well? So what I'm thinking now is I'll maybe just go up there and just pot a little bit more bait in, maybe cut out the micros, feed hard pellets and corn, and go and have a drop back in the open water and see if I can nick one of them big carp. I mean, that's an hide. Obviously they're all building the weight, but we're getting to that time of day now when we're probably going to want to start targeting the carp soon. We've got 2.5 hours left. To be honest, the match seems to be going on a long time, 6 hours. After you've been used to fishing sort of 5 hours in winter and it's starting to get dark, 6 hours is seeming a very long time. I've probably got 20 pound now, I would think. So there's plenty of time left to catch another, well, we're probably looking at catching another 40 to 50 pound if we're going to win the match, I would think. Depending on, I'm assuming they're catching a few fish on the other lake. I mean, on this lake, I think nobody's maybe got more than 1 carp. But catching 40 or 50 pound when you've got 20 halfway through seems a lot. But it's obviously easily achievable if they come in that edge. And I think to give myself a chance of catching the sort of weight, there's a carp just topped straight in front of me as well. So to give myself a chance of catching that weight that's going to win, I need to now start being a bit more positive. So I'm really planning on just fishing for carp now if I can. So I've changed there, you've just seen, I've fed some 4mm pellets and some corn along that banking. And I'm going to now just go back out straight in front of me where I've been feeding the same and see if there's a carp sat over it. But for now, for the rest of the match, I'm thinking I'm going to just try and catch carp and give myself a chance of doing well, because although no one on here is catching any, I'm sure at some point someone will. And keeping on fishing for them small fish, because I'm not getting a bite every chuck off them, I'm not giving myself a chance to win, I don't feel. I'm not going to catch as much doing that as either they'll catch on the other lakes or someone's going to catch on here fishing for carp late on. So now I've changed all my lines a bit. Everything's a little bit more positive. And hopefully I'm giving myself the best chance I can of catching maybe 7 or 8 carp in the second half of the match to get towards the type of weight that we're looking for to win the match. exactly what I was hoping for. I'd rested that line, I'd fed a little bit of bait on it and just left it. For maybe 15 minutes or so, I'd caught a little carp up the bank and an hide. And when I went back on it, I had an indication, well, what looked like a positive bite. When I picked up, my rig sort of come up sideways and I dropped it back in and it's gone straight under again. And that feels like a decent fish. So that decision to now fish for carp looks like it might hopefully pay off. And now I'm fishing for carp. I've changed my rig. I'd set 2 rigs up, one to catch a bit of everything and one just slightly stepped up. So now when I do hook a carp, I feel like I've got the best possible chance of landing it. And hopefully there might be a few to be caught in this last spell. So what I'm going to do now, land this fish, or hopefully land this fish. I'm just going to go and pot a little bit more bait in down the edge. When I fed it the first time, I fed sort of a decent palm full of micros, 40 or 50 bits of corn. That was to just get a bit of bait in there. And now I'm just going to look to start feeding it every 15, 20 minutes or so. And not with as much bait, maybe with just sort of 15 or 20 pellets, 5 or 6 bits of corn. Just keep topping it up with sort of the amount of bait that I'll look to feed when I'm actually fishing it. And I'm confident now. Now I've caught them 3 carp out in the open water, I'm confident that this edge is going to come good. I've seen a couple of carp further along the bank milling about, just sort of cruising around. And I'm feeling confident now that I'll maybe catch a few more on this long pole and catch some late on down the edge. And maybe even give myself the chance of nicking one up that bank. But for whatever reason, I would have thought how I've been fishing up that bank, I would have hooked one at some point and I haven't. But maybe it's just that the fish are sort of just coming to the time of day when they're starting to have a bit more of a feed now. And this feels like a good fish. Hopefully he stays on and I get him in. Definitely a proper fish. And these are the ones you need. Obviously, like I said, they'll be catching a bit more steadily on Low Lake, but the fish are a lot smaller, so if you get one good one in here, it can be worth sort of 3, 4, 5 fish on that lake. But you just need to make sure you get them in. There's no rush at all. This is not the middle of summer, you're not looking to play catch up massively at the end. Just need to make sure you put the fish in the net. And this is a time of year when the fish always seem to fight a little bit harder. They're just starting to wake up. So they've got a little bit more energy, but the water's going still clear. They can see exactly where they're going. They're not trying to charge about in them murky coloured waters in the height of summer. This definitely feels like a good fish, unless it's foul hooked, but I don't think it is. Like I said though, just don't rush, just take your time, make sure they all end up in the net. Because the last thing you want to do is be pulling out of one and it costs you. No need to rush, you've waited long enough to catch them. Make sure they end up in the net. And this one isn't very happy about being hooked at all. I've also somehow managed to get my puller bead stuck in the tread on my wellies. And that is just the type of fish you need to get you right back into it. Probably 12 pound, seem to have it on for an absolute eternity, but it doesn't really matter when it's sort of half of your weight again, even more probably. So that can't even get him to come back out of my net. That's obviously a massive bonus. So what I'm going to do now is just go and tap a few more pellets and a bit of corn in on that line again. I'm going to feed a little bit of bait in the edge. I'm going to go and get back on and hopefully catch a few more of them. We're coming into the last hour and a half of the match now, and to be honest, it's been a frustrating spell since I last spoke to you. Obviously just had that nice little run where I caught a couple of carp, and then I caught that big carp, and I'd sort of set my stall then to just sit and fish for them, and that's pretty much what I've done. I've fished long pole, hard pellets and corn, but every time I've had a bite it's been off a skimmer. I've caught maybe 5 or 6 skimmers, and I've not had another carp, but they're topping all over the lake now. Not so much in this bit where I am, but in the middle of the lake, they're topping everywhere, loads of them constantly. It's become really frustrating because I know I've got to sit and fish for them now, but I'm just not catching one. If I could just get another one, just as I say that, I've just missed a bite down the edge. If I could just catch another one, it'd sort of make me feel like I'm in with a chance of a good late run. But I've actually seen a carp top sort of 5 metres out from the bank in front of me. So there's definitely some fish coming in closer, and I've had a go short, not had a bite. Sorry, I did get a bite. I caught a roach and a skimmer that come off. And then I've just gone into the edge now, and I got a bite that I missed, but I'm not convinced that a carp, to be honest. There could again be small fish, and I don't know if I've perhaps gone down the wrong route. I maybe should have fished hard 6mm pellets, fed hardly any, and sort of sat and waited and been nice and patient. But you miss out on all them other fish then. And early on, when nothing was being caught, at least I was putting something in the net. But now I feel like there should be some carp feed and I can't catch one. It's really frustrating. All I can do is sit and be patient, and obviously that, when that's just gone under now, if that had been a carp, I'd have been thinking, great, hour and a half left, something like that. Still got time to catch another 5, 6, 7 carp. But I just need to get that one to get me going, I feel. And I can see Andy over on the other half of the lake, who's sort of the other side of the spit. And he's catching well now, he's catching short, he's catching down the edge. But it just doesn't seem to be happening for me, and really, really frustrating. And I'm sort of a bit caught in two minds what to do now. Do I just sit there and wait in the edge and hope they turn up? Or do I go back out on that long pole and just tap a little bit of bait and be patient, take the odd skimmer I catch and hope I catch another couple of carp? I've just had a bite down the edge again, but again it's a skimmer. Frustrating, everywhere I go, all I seem to be able to catch is skimmers. And whether that's down to feeding the wrong bait or what, I'm not sure. But I've made my decision now, I've got to stick with it. So I'm going to have to keep doing what I'm doing. Hopefully some carp turn up. I've just watched Andy actually net a fish there, and it looks like it was a barbel, so maybe he's not catching as many carp as I think. It's just really frustrating. I feel like the fish are active and they're moving about, and I've actually seen an odd one caught down the edge, so they are coming in for people, but for whatever reason I don't seem to be able to catch one. I'm going to have to keep plodding along and hope I can. Maybe I could change what I'm feeding slightly. I'm certainly going to stop feeding micros, feed a little bit more corn. But it's frustrating, I'm really stuck in two minds. And I keep thinking to myself, maybe I should be just sat on the long pole trying to catch another 1 or 2 carp and maybe an odd skimmer in amongst them. But I feel like to do any good, I really need a run of fish now, and it just doesn't seem to be happening. I know all of the sort of leading weights that have been caught on this lake recently. They have caught fish down the edge, so that's got to be the place I catch them. But I just need to catch one. And it's so hard, especially at this time of the year. I mean, when it's warmer, you can feed heavy, feed in shallow water, you can almost force them to come in and you know they're there. When it's like this, you can't feed loads of bait. Obviously, you need to feed enough to get them to come in. You're fishing in deeper water, so you can't see them, and you sometimes feel like you're sitting there aimlessly. But I mean, that's another indication then. But you feel like you're sitting there aimlessly, but you've got to be patient to catch one. You're not just going to go in and get one straight away. So you need to feed your bait, sit and wait. I'm getting a few indications, and I feel like it's because there's silverfish in my peg. I definitely feel like I'm probably fishing the wrong bait. Yeah, I probably should have fished hard pellets, to be honest. There's still a while left. I mean, you think to yourself, is it worth maybe putting a couple more sections on, going further along and tapping in a few hard pellets and seeing what response I get? But I really did feel like corn would be the best bait, and obviously I've caught them carp earlier on corn. I'm not sure what everyone else is fishing, to be honest. It's hard to tell. But no one's catching loads of carp, but there is now an odd one being caught down the edge. And some of these indications I'm getting, it's not going under. It'll sort of drag off to the side a bit now and again, or a little lift. But I'm just not sure if it's small fish. I think it probably is. What I really want is just a 1,000-mile-an-hour underbite with a carp on the end. Give me a bit of confidence, and once you catch one, you're happy to just sit then. You know you're doing the right thing, you know you're fishing in the right place. But until you catch that first one, it can be so frustrating. Yeah, so it's just gone under again then, and I missed it, and they've got to be small fish. I've not foul hooked on anything. I think, to be honest, I'm a bit stuck for what to do at the minute, other than sit and wait and fish through them. But I almost feel like I'm just wasting my time fishing there. Maybe I'd have a better chance of catching one somewhere else. And then, like I said, everywhere I've dropped in, I seem to catch a skimmer. And this should be the time of the day when I'm catching some carp. So for now, I'm going to probably stick with what I'm doing for the time being. But if I don't get one soon, I'm going to have to start thinking about what I'm doing. And just as I thought that, oh no, it's a skimmer. Just for a second, I thought that was a carp. That float absolutely buried. But unfortunately, it's another skimmer. And just for a second, when I hooked it, it felt like it was a carp. So I need to be a bit gentle getting this round. Yeah, frustrating. So I think at the minute, I'm going to have to stick with what I'm doing and hope it starts going under with a carp on the end. I mean, where I was thinking about maybe fishing a long pole, catch an odd skimmer and maybe nick a carp or two. If I'm getting bites off these down the edge, I'm probably as well fishing there, and maybe I'll get a carp or two down there. I mean, it's a lovely fish, but they're not really what I want at the minute. So I'm going to go, keep sticking with what I'm doing. Hopefully soon I'll manage a big carp, and it might be the start of things to come. Well, we're well into the last hour now, and to be honest, it's not really happening. When I spoke last time, every time I got a bite, it was off a skimmer. I was struggling, and it stayed like that for a little bit longer. I made a change to hard pellets. I pushed out another section, sort of started fresh, and I did get 2 carp. One maybe 2 pound and one 4 pounds, not big ones like I was hoping for. And then that's pretty much been it, really. I think I've got a skimmer doing that, and I've just lost a carp, but that was foul hooked. It feels like there's an odd one coming in, but the whole lake just doesn't seem to be very good. There's not loads of fish being caught. Pegs to my left are starting to get a few fish down the edge on pegs, I think 8 and 10 there on. But for whatever reason, whether there's not enough coming in, they're not coming in and competing. I feel like there's a very odd fish coming in, but I'm just not catching anything. I can sit and sit and sit, and eventually I might get some type of indication that looks like it could be a liner or something like that. And that's really it. I honestly don't know what to do. I suppose my next step's maybe to just try and fill it in and hope I can really force some fish to come in and maybe catch a couple in the last half an hour. But in all honesty, unless I suddenly catch 4 or 5 decent fish, I'm too far behind those on the other lake. Probably an hour and a half ago, they had sort of 50 pound on that lake. So, case of maybe picking the wrong lake, probably the wrong peg on the wrong lake. And when it comes to looking at where fish have been moving about, the further that way you go, the more fish I've seen topping. Sort of in the middle of this arm of the lake that I'm on, there's been a lot of fish topping, and I think maybe they just don't want to be in this calm water where I am, to be honest. I think there's an odd fish milling about, but not really in any numbers. To be honest, I would have probably been better off sticking to fishing a long pole with corn and just trying to nick a few more, maybe catch some skimmers. And that was definitely a liner. Oh, that was a definite sign. Float went under and there was a bit of a bow wave off, so there is an odd one coming in, but I'm just really struggling to catch anything, to be honest. Unless I get a sudden burst, yeah, it's not looking good. But I suppose also that is the beauty of big carp. You could catch 5 in the last 20 minutes, you just don't know. So you've got to keep going right till the end, but it's not looking very good at the minute, to be honest. I'm going to have this chuck with these hard pellets, and I'm just going to change back to corn, see if that makes any difference. Now we're coming into the last bit of the match. I did feel like corn was going to be the best bait, but at the minute nothing seems to really be right. So I'm going to have this chuck with pellets again, see if I get one. If not, I think I'll change my hook length back to a standard hook, change back to corn, maybe double corn, try and avoid them skimmers, and just feed a few pellets and a little bit of corn, and again just sit and be patient and hope I get just a little burst all of a sudden. But at the minute I just don't feel like it's going to happen. The odd indication I have had, it feels like the fish aren't really in my peg eating. They've maybe swam through my line, maybe patrolling up and down the bank or whatever they might be doing, but they don't particularly feel like they're there feeding, that's for certain. It's not like you're getting indications as if there's fish sat there around your rig eating your bait. It's just one out of the blue. You might get like a sort of some type of indication like a fish has swam through your rig. But just really hard work at the minute, and it doesn't seem like it's getting better. The whole lake did seem to have gone quiet, but like I said, the pegs to my left on that bank have just had a few fish in the last sort of 20 minutes. But I'm struggling to catch one, to be honest, and it's not feeling like I'm suddenly going to get one. I guess you just got to cross your fingers and hope when it's like this. But obviously it's still cold. It's only just coming out of winter. There's been some frost still this week, so fishing was bound to be a little bit hard, I suppose. I thought it'd be better, to be honest. I thought the fish might have fed a little bit better, but it seems that it's still a bit shoaled up, and typical of big carp in cold weather. If you're not on them, then there's not really a lot you can do. Probably could have caught a little bit more than I have if I'd have kept trying to catch a little bit of everything in amongst them carp, but I've also got to look at the fact that you're not ever going to catch enough doing that when you hear the weights that were being caught on the other lake. And a bit disappointing really, because with sort of 2 hours to go, I'd got a big carp, 2 decent carp and some other fish, and it was looking good, and I'm thinking to myself, it seemed like the carp were going to start feeding last 2 hours. I was thinking I'm going to get a really good run, but it's just never materialised. And now as I'm talking, he's lost that one actually, but Peg 8 just had another one on. He just netted one while I've been speaking, he's just hooked another one. Peg 10's just hooked one next to him, so there's obviously a few more fish there willing to feed. In maybe a bit of a ripple, maybe there's a few more fish there, but for whatever reason down this end maybe there's not as many. It's proven to be really, really difficult. Well, I finally managed to catch one, but it's not one of them big ones that I was expecting. It's probably a little stocky, I think. Also managed to try and get me stuck under the platform, which was nice of it. So I think, to be honest, after I catch this one, the fish on these hard pellets have been the wrong fish. Maybe that's all that's in the peg, but I'm going to change back to corn, nice big double corn. And hopefully, yeah, just a little stocky there, look. It's not the fish I want really, at least it's a fish, I've caught something, but it's still just not right. I'm not catching the right fish. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to change to a bigger hook bait. I'm going to put a normal hook back on, change to double corn, feed some corn and pellets, and again just sit and wait, and hopefully I can nick a big fish or two in the last sort of half an hour or so. So I'll come back to you towards the end of the match and I'll let you know how it finishes up. Well, we're coming into the last 10 minutes of the match now, and it's not really got much better. Just this last 10 minutes I've had one, and I've got another one on now, and it's felt a little bit different. I'm not getting them small fish signs anymore, so hopefully I might catch another one or two, but it just doesn't seem like there's a massive volume of fish here. Further up the lake, they seem to be hooking them all the time down the edge, where I'm getting very, very few bites really. I'm I'm fishing hard pellets still. I've got an 8mm on the hook, meaning I can actually leave my rigging, and them skimmers weren't such a problem. But all of a sudden now I seem to be not really getting any signs off them, to be honest. So hopefully that means there's a few carp moved in. I might nick another one or two, but it's all a little bit too late, unfortunately. Definitely feel like I've not chose the right peg, to be honest. I should have probably sat somewhere a bit further into the wind. But it's been a nice day anyway. I've had plenty of bites. I've obviously caught some of them little F1s, I've caught some skimmers. Certainly can't complain for lack of bites, but just not quite enough of these proper fish has been my problem and the downfall, to be honest. And the difference is, I mean, it's only 4 or 5 fish. Another 4 or 5 fish and you're probably right up there, but it's just not happened, unfortunately. This feels like a decent fish, to be honest. The fish I have caught down the edge up until this have only been small as well, which again, you were wanting them big old 6, 7, 8 pound plus fish, and I just feel like, to be honest, they haven't really been here. And it was looking okay with a couple of hours to go before everyone started catching the carp. When the proper carp have started feeding, and I was thinking I might sort of add 40, 50 pound to my weight, this one wants to be under the platform. I've struggled for bites then, to be honest, and well, I haven't struggled for bites because I've had loads of bites off skimmers, but I've struggled to catch the fish that I wanted to catch. In hindsight, probably shouldn't have fed any micros down there. I think that's made it worse. Nice patient approach with just solely hard pellets would have been the way to go, but I'm not sure I would have caught many more anyway, because they just don't seem to be here in the type of numbers that I needed them to be. This one really doesn't want to come in. One thing, when I have caught a carp today, they've certainly known how to put up a bit of a scrap. I mean, you've seen that big one I caught earlier, that was sort of double figures. He fought hard. This one's not as big as that, but he doesn't want to give up. It's about done, I think. Could do with getting him in and hopefully maybe trying to get another one. Oh, that's a nice fish. Yeah, that's a good fish. Could have done with about another 6 or 7 of those, I think. But maybe we've just got time for another one if we're lucky. Just get a hook out of him. I can't quite get out that hook. There we go. So I've got about 8 minutes left. It'd be nice if we could just go out and catch one more. So I'm just fishing now a nice hard 8mm pellet, putting that in the band, feeding sort of 2 8mm and 6 or 7 4s. Very little bait, try and not draw one of them skimmers into the peg, and hopefully I can keep my bait in to catch a carp then. One other thing I've done, I've come actually a bit further out from the bank, so I was fishing right in front of the platform before. I'm fishing maybe 2 metres out now. I was done that thinking the carp didn't seem to be wanting to come right into the edge confidently, and since that's where I've caught those last 2 carp, a bit further out from the bank. Maybe should have tried that a little bit earlier. I also think a lot of that is time of the day. So stay with you for this last little bit of the match. Hopefully the camera can bring me a bit of luck. Sounds like the other lake's probably fished quite well. I suppose with hindsight, should have maybe chose to go on that lake. It was almost sort of the safe option with those smaller fish. Much more willing to feed, and you knew you were going to catch on there. But I honestly thought, after it being so warm yesterday, warm overnight, warm again today, the days drawing out, starting to get longer, I thought it'd be the sort of time those big fish woke up, and even though people have caught a few, there's not loads of them fed. I'm sure probably by next week, another week of warm, that looked like it might have been a bite. Another week of warm temperatures. I'm just going to drop that back in again now and give it maybe a minute. And if I don't get one, I might ship back and feed again, because it definitely looked like a sign. Yeah, so same with another maybe week of warmer temperatures, and obviously the days are just getting longer and longer. These fish are definitely going to wake up soon, and by next week all the big fish could be feeding, and this will be the lake to be on. Maybe just a week too early at the moment, but they're the choices you have to make on these type of matches. And I think today, unfortunately for me, I've probably made the wrong one. But it'd be nice just to catch one more proper fish to finish the day off, and then I'll probably be sat thinking to myself, well, if only I could have done this or I could have done that. I've maybe, to be honest, gone down the edge a little bit too soon. I maybe should have left it. I've gone down at sort of 2:15, 2:30. Maybe could have left it till after 3 o'clock, and it might have been a little bit better. I've maybe gone on it, been a bit too keen, but there was a few fish starting to get caught down the edges, and it's sort of drawn me in. I maybe could have stayed on that long pole a little bit longer, and possibly put another fish or two in the net. I'm not going to ship back and feed again. I'm just going to wait. Just give it, there's only 4 minutes left, so I'm just going to sit and be patient. If it was an indication off a carp, I'm sure it'll come back in. I'll get another chance at him. It was only a quick stab on my float, could even have been a skimmer. The bites I've had off the carp on these hard pellets have been generally very, very positive. It's just a case now of sitting and waiting and hopefully catch another. And that last one, I was probably sat 7 or 8 minutes, and totally out of the blue it just vanished at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And that's really how you want it to be. The problem I've had, where I've fished in front of the platform and I've fed those micros and corn early, and then I've changed to hard pellets, but only a little bit past my micros. And the problem I've had there is I've had too many indications, getting lots of signs off small fish, even fishing sort of 8mm pellets there. So when I've come out from the bank, I've maybe got away from them fish a little bit. And it's a strange problem to have, be getting too many signs, but there were signs off the total wrong fish. And it's just caused me problems. You're not sure when you should be feeding, when you're not feeding. I think there's maybe an odd carp coming in amongst them. I did foul hook one. So maybe, like I spoke about, that patient approach, if I'd have just tapped a few hard pellets in like I am now, and I hadn't have fed those micros to start with, maybe I wouldn't have drawn all those skimmers into my peg. Could have been a bit more patient and sort of sat there for 7 or 8 bites. But you can also feel a little bit like, if you don't feed those micros, sometimes you can't draw any carp in, or maybe should have just left it a little bit longer. I've just seen a carp move a little bit away from my float. Oh no, I won't do that. I think I've just had an indication. I was just about to fire in sort of 5 or 6 pellets around my float to try and make something happen, because I'd seen a carp move a bit further along. With 2 minutes left, it might have just given me a chance to draw it back towards my hook bait. But I'm sure I just had a little liner then. I'm just going to hold off, wait and see. What I could do, maybe something that can work well, is just make a little bit of noise with my hook bait, just plop it on the surface a few times, and just see if I can draw an inquisitive carp. That's something that can work really well when you're fishing with hard pellets. It means you can make a bit of noise to draw one in, but you're not feeding any more bait in your peg and risking foul hooking one. And that is sort of my last throw of the dice. About a minute left. Was really hoping I'd catch one more just to finish the day nicely, but it's not looking like there's going to be one obliging. So yeah, I've had plenty of bites. I've had a nice enough day's fishing. Certainly can't complain about that, and that's what we come for at the end of the day. But as far as winning anything goes, unfortunately, I've first of all probably picked the wrong lake. I think I've probably picked the wrong peg on the wrong lake as well, and alongside that I haven't quite got it right. I think early on, first half of the match, things went how I needed them to, and that's time. The first half of the match, things went how I wanted them to. Second half, it's not gone so well. But I'll come back to you soon. I'll get my gear packed away. We'll get weighed in, and I'll see how I've done and let you know. But unfortunately, doesn't look like it's going to be too good. So while I'm waiting to weigh in, I just want to quickly run through the bait I've used today and my rigs. Now first up, bait. Well, I've gone for a really simple approach. I just brought pellets and I've brought corn. I've had all different sizes of pellets with me, but the one I've mostly relied on has been micro pellets. So I've used them as feed, both in my open water line and up the bank, as well as down the edge at various times of the day. The other pellets I've had, some 4 mils. They're dry and hard, and they're what I've fed in the open water when I was looking to target carp in them later stages of the match. And then finally, good old corn. You'll never find a fish in a commercial fishery that won't eat corn. At this time of the year, it's absolutely brilliant. You can catch a bit of everything on it, especially big carp, what I was targeting down the margins and in the open water. So 3 nice simple baits there. In hindsight, they've probably not been right for everything. They were good when I was fishing up the banking, and they were good in the open water. Everything went exactly how I wanted. When I've come to fishing down the margins, it's not been quite the right bait. I've drawn the wrong fish into my peg. I've had a lot of small fish there, and I've had loads of problems. That's partly due to feeding the micros, I think, and probably partly due to the fact that there's maybe not quite as many carp in the area as I was hoping, so they're not really coming in numbers, so they're not pushing them silverfish out of the peg. Now, if I could fish again, I would probably feed hard 6 mil pellets down there. I'd forget about the micros, just tap a few pellets in. I wouldn't get as many bites, but I'd hopefully catch a few more big fish, which would just allow me to build the weight up a bit better later on. But I've caught loads and loads of fish over the years on that combination. Micro pellets and corn are absolutely brilliant in this sort of late winter, early springtime, so it's not a bait I'd ever fish without. Now moving on to rigs. Rig choice has been really simple for me today, because everywhere I've plumbed up, whether it's been in front of the next peg, short pole, long pole, or up that bank, it's exactly the same depth. So starting off with the elastic, I've got a 10 to 12 FXT hybrid elastic. Now, if I was going to use that again up that bank, and I'd maybe drop down a grade, but it's been perfect. I just felt like I would catch a few more carp than what I did, so I thought that slightly heavier elastic would have allowed me to get control of them a little bit better. As it's turned out, I've not actually caught any carp up that bank, and I could have probably got away with an 8 to 10, just cushion them skimmers and F1s a little bit better. Mainline 017 FXT rig line, nice and strong and durable, and what that allows me to do is use any hook length up to 017. So if all of a sudden my peg became full of big carp, I can simply change my hook length and I can play them a bit harder. I'm not worrying about getting broke. Likewise, when it is a bit harder, I can drop down to 011 or 13 on that and just get slightly better presentation. Just above my float here by maybe 6 inches, I've got 2 number 8 barrel shot. That's just helping me keep control of my rig and keep hold of it in what's been actually quite a strong wind. It's been over my back a little bit, but it's just allowed me to control my rig and keep it right on top of my feed. Now float wise, nice simple round bodied pattern, a 1.7 mil bristle in it and a carbon stem. It's a real all round style float. You can do a little bit of anything with it, and it means I can fish whatever bait I've wanted and vary my shot and pattern about, which I've had to do when I fished up that banking. So talking of shot, to start with, I've fished with my shot spread out. I thought I'd be catching little stocky carp and odd bigger carp. As it's turned out, the fish were mostly skimmers and F1s up that bank. So I've moved my shot together and I've bulked them up about 8 inches away from the hook. And then I've gone for a single number 10 dropper halfway down my hook length. That's just made my shot on a little bit more positive and showed the bites up much better than the spread out rig did. Now hook length material, I've fished 013 FXT rig line, and that's finished off with a size 18 101 hook. So not a particularly heavy rig, but not light. It's sort of balanced in between and allows me to catch a little bit of everything. And then my second rig, exactly the same main line, but a slightly heavier elastic. That's a 12 to 14 hybrid. This is the rig I was aiming to catch proper carp on. I just used a heavier elastic to allow me to get a little bit more control over the fish. Like I said, 017 line, and then again above that float, 2 number 9 or number 8 barrel shot, just to help keep control, keep my rig nice and still. Same pattern of float, but just stepped up again. That's a 0.4 of a gram, and that just allowed me to fish nice and accurate over the bait I was potting in down the margin, and also later on the long pole for carp. All about stability, a little bit of a heavier float, and just allows me to keep my rig exactly where I want it. Now this rig's just shotted nice and simply with a spread bulk above my hook length. Then number 9 shot with just a couple of smaller trimming shot above it to get the float set exactly how I wanted. And below that again, 6-inch hook length, this time it's stepped up again like the rest of the rig. That's 015 FXT rig line. And that was finished off initially with a size 16 101 hook, and then later on when I've changed to hard pellets, I've changed that for a size 16 202 with a band. So nice simple rig, one a little bit heavier and a little bit stronger for catching them big fish, and one a little bit more balanced for catching a bit of everything. But they've both done exactly the job that I've wanted them to. So I've just weighed in and I've had 56 pound 15 ounces. Not quite good enough to win anything, unfortunately. 59 pound was last in the frame, so one fish off. Definitely should have had that. I've not quite got it right. In the edge, obviously, like I've spoke about, I've definitely fed the wrong bait. I think that's probably cost me catching another 1 or 2 fish, 3 fish possibly. So you're looking at maybe another 15 pound there. That would have given me sort of 70 pound. Also felt like I've gone down the edge a little bit too early. I probably should have kept on that long pole. After I had that little run where I caught 3 carp, I then started catching skimmers. I should have sat and maybe caught a few more skimmers. I might even have nicked a carp in with them, who knows, and maybe left the edge for another 40 minutes later. So definitely a few improvements. I don't think I've sat on the best peg. I don't think there's been as many fish here as I'd hoped, or not as many bigger fish. I finished up with I think 5 carp in my carp net for about 28 pound, 30 pound maybe, and then the rest of it's been skimmers, a few little stockies, some F1s, but plenty of bites. I've had a lovely day's fishing, but looking back, definitely made a few mistakes, and I probably should have had 70 to 75 pound if I'd have got a dead right in that edge. Overall, 106 pounds won the match off Low Lake, which sounds like lovely fishing. I didn't catch the name of the guy who'd won, but apparently he's just set 2 rods up, fished a method feeder all day, so he's had a great day's fishing there. 48 carp I think they said he's had, so nice busy day. And then there's a 77 pound on there as well, and then a 59 pound off this lake. So just short of the frame, a few mistakes made, definitely should have had enough to frame. Second place, 77 pound, I'm not sure even if I'd have got it right in that edge, I could have caught that weight. But 59 pound, one more fish, obviously that's always achievable. But lovely fishing. I've had plenty of bites, caught loads of fish, and I hope you've picked up a thing or two along the way about how I approach this type of venue at this time of year. So if you've enjoyed the video, like always, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the Frenzee YouTube channel, and I'll see you all again next time I'm out.